Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge YouTube channel and to highlights of Amstel Gold Race 2021. We've got Roglic, Wout van Aert, Alaphilippe, Pidcock, Schachmann here. We've even got Tom Dumoulin in attendance. They did 12 laps of a closed circuit featuring 3 climbs, the hardest of which was the Cauberg. And then on the last lap, they skipped the Cauberg, meaning that there would be a narrow but flat run into the finale. Break had a 4-minute advantage with about 80 kilometers to go. Loic Vliegen, probably the strongest rider in that group. They were being chased by De Koenig, Alaphilippe their leader, Movistar for Valverde, as well as Jumbo-Visma for Roglic and Wout van Aert. And the race started to heat up a bit more with about 60 kilometers to go. Some splits occurring on the climbs. The gap to the break was now under 2 minutes. And favourites were getting into these splits, Carapaz, Kwiatkowski, as well as, I believe, Wout van Aert in this group. Ineos, with Carapaz and Rowe, keen to keep that action going and make this race as difficult as possible, whilst Van Sevenant crashed behind one of the most important helpers for Julian Alaphilippe, and he would probably be a leader on another team in his own right for this race. He made his way back and would feature later, and he wasn't the only rider having issues. Schachmann got caught up in a crash, didn't hurt himself fortunately, also had a mechanical in this race. He managed to make his way back as the break was starting to disintegrate. With 45 k's to go, the gap was only 40 seconds to them, and so behind Colbrelli, Seneschal, Rui Costa and Dylan van Baarle, probably trying to replicate his Dwaal's Tour of Vlaanderen performance, started to attack, and they were being chased by none other than Primoz Roglic on the front with 41.2 k's to go, although they did have Sam Oomen in the group who quickly moved up to chase down that dangerous move because it had in it some climby sprinty boys, and this Amstel Gold circuit wasn't as difficult as normal years. Less climbing, they catch the break very quickly, and either no gap is too big for me to bridge. Schelling attacks on the Cauberg, the penultimate ascent of the Cauberg with 35 k's to go. Roglic tries to counter off that move, but he's marked by Pidcock and Alejandro Valverde with Wout van Aert fourth wheel. And that gap's not 35 seconds. I know it said on the ticker it was 35 seconds, but De Wolf, Bernard and Vliegen were not 35 seconds ahead, more like 10 to 12. So Schelling bridged across to them once again, then dropped them on a descent, kind of like Grace Brown to Royackers in the women's race. And there were just splits all over the place after that Cauberg. Van Sevenant, I think, was supposed to be pulling for Julian Alaphilippe at this point to close down the Schelling move, but he's pulled so hard that he's created a split, but no Julian Alaphilippe. The second rider is actually a Quebec Assos rider, probably Simon Clark, who's got on the podium of Amstel Gold Race before. Despite having Schelling within their sights on the Bemlerberg, once Van Sevenant pulls off, no other riders are keen to continue that action. You see Dylan van Baarle pulls off. He's not willing to chase because he doesn't care if Ida Schelling goes into the Cauberg with 19 k's to go with a 10 to 15 second lead. His job is to keep Tom Pidcock and Kwiatkowski in good position in the run-in to that Cauberg, to make sure that they're in the top 10 wheels. Cavagna on the right-hand side with Seneschal is doing exactly the same thing for Julian Alaphilippe. Wout van Aert, I believe, is on Carapaz's wheel on the left-hand side. Matthews is in good position on Julian Alaphilippe's wheel, but for riders like Fuglsang and Valverde, they're not even in the top 20 wheels, which is going to make it difficult for them on the Cauberg. Trek attacking on the right-hand side. Alaphilippe not responding to this move, and you see 3 Ineos riders in the top 10 wheels at the base of the Cauberg. Wout van Aert goes up the road to respond to this move, whilst his teammate Primoz Roglic had a mechanical. He dropped his chain. He had good legs, it seemed, today, whilst Wout van Aert attacks with Julian Alaphilippe on the wheel, who then goes out of the saddle to attack, and people have been mentioning this to me, that he doesn't look the same as last year. That was supposed to be an attack for Alaphilippe, and compared to Imola and the World Champs last year, he doesn't seem to have that superhuman extra snap to get distance on riders like Wout van Aert, Pidcock, Kwiatkowski and co. They're outnumbered, Schachmann, Wout van Aert and Matthews, by the 3 Ineos riders. Now, I don't have the images, unfortunately, but Ineos chose to immediately attack with Kwiatkowski to force Wout van Aert and Schachmann to chase. They then countered with Tom Pidcock the minute Kwiatkowski got brought back, with the gap to the group behind about 8 to 9 seconds with 12 k's to go. There's no Cauberg in the last 3 kilometers like there normally would be in Amstel Gold Race. So Pidcock brings with him Wout van Aert and Schachmann. He's got Kwiatkowski behind blocking that group, which Valverde has gotten into despite being so far out of position on the Cauberg. And I think Pidcock actually had Wout van Aert and Schachmann under a bit of difficulty. He asked Wout to pull, and Wout van Aert's not a guy that finesses. If he can pull, he will normally pull, especially when it's a reduced bunch. He backs himself in the sprint, and they had a massive gap on the group behind with 12 k's to go. You can see why they chose this different run into the finish. It favoured the attackers, and I think it was just Poor old Mauri van Sevenot having to pull that 15-second gap back. Meanwhile, Schachmann and Wout van Aert had begun working with Tom Pidcock. The gap was now over 20 seconds. The group was tied behind, so if these three kept working together, it was surely going to be a sprint finish between those three. With 3.8 k's to go, the gap was now under 20 seconds, but Wellens attacked. Kwiatkowski was then blocking again. The momentum came out of that chase, and Schachmann chose the last rise in the race to attack on the right-hand side. He almost did catch Wout van Aert by surprise, but he and Pidcock snapped onto Schachmann's wheel. 1900 meters to go. That was pretty much Schachmann's chance at winning over, and so they went into the last kilometer. Flamme Rouge, and the finessing begins, with Pidcock leading them through there. 800 meters to go. Was this going to be an Amstel Gold Race 2019 replay all over again? They'd taken the speed down to about 35 kilometers an hour, but you could see they had a 150, 200 meter gap on the group behind, which importantly doesn't have Mathieu van der Poel on the front pulling. Kind of an important difference, and particularly because Wout van Aert and Pidcock were pretty conscious of this gap the whole time. They let it come down to about 90 meters. With 200 meters to go, Wout van Aert gets out of the saddle and accelerates, gapping Pidcock a little bit off his wheel. Schachmann immediately done. Was this going to be a replay of midweek Brabantse Pijl with Pidcock jumping out of Wout van Aert's slipstream? Wout van Aert's sprint looked way better this time. Bike throw at the end. We had no idea who'd won. Michael Matthews fourth, and this was one of the closest photo finishes apparently in cycling history. Pidcock with probably the better throw than Wout van Aert. Wout was ahead of him after the line as well. Very quickly after the race, Wout van Aert was told that he had won the race. The graphics came up that Wout van Aert had won the race. We hadn't seen a photo finish. We're looking on Twitter and you'd seen it on the TV, the side-on shot. This isn't the photo finish, where it looked like Pidcock was even ahead of Wout van Aert. Definitely close enough that a photo finish assessment would be required to determine the winner. Eventually a UCI official emerges showing what looks like a photo finish zoomed in on his iPhone at an angle, which doesn't really tell us too much. In the highlights pack, I was sent this photo image where it looks pretty much like there's a dead heat and there's no text on the photo to say this is the official photo finish, but apparently the real photo finish is this one, where it does show clearly Wout van Aert ahead of Tom Pidcock at the line. So hopefully that's the photo finish that they assessed in the booth after the race. Twitter absolutely blew up about it. We spoke about it more at length on the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast straight after the race if you want to get our immediate reactions to races. But all I can say is the significant time delay before being shown the photo finish and then being shown almost three different ones left a lot of the viewers justifiably very confused. But Wout van Aert was the winner of Amstel Gold Race, taking his revenge on Tom Pidcock after Pidcock beat him at Brabantse Pijl. Pidcock second, Schachmann third, Matthews winning the bunch sprint behind for fourth. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Like it down below if you did. If you want to support the channel, consider joining channel membership through the join button down below to join the Lanterne Rouge members Discord, where we talk about all the races in real time. But otherwise, I'll see you at the highlights of Flèche Wallonne midweek. Ciao.